Welcome to Mastering CS Candy Leader Insights, the podcast where we dive into the world of customer success with industry leaders. I'm your host, Irina Chismash, and today I'm joined by Porter Williams, Head of Customer Success at BrightHire, a hiring intelligence platform that helps teams run better, more consistent interviews. Porter was actually on the podcast about 1 year ago. So, this is a bit of a follow up conversation to see what has changed since then. Porter, I'm really happy to have you back. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. It's great to be back. So it's been a busy year. A lot has happened in my world. But I'm still at BrightHire and BrightHire is still absolutely killing it. And it's been a very exciting year.
I look forward to hearing all about the last time we've been speaking. We talked about building systems in CS that drive customer outcomes. Since then, how has the organization evolved? Did things play out the way you expected?
Yeah.
Worse, better? How was your year?
Yeah. I would say slower. It is nothing is ever as smooth or as easy as you intend. So building the systems around customer outcomes is still very much our team's North Star. What has been the evolution of that is reframing amongst my team how we think about adoption and categorizing the differences between sort of core adoption and then flavors of of deeper adoption of our platform. We've recognized that there is a base level of kind of core adoption of our core products, hence the term core, sorry, where that is a table stakes. And if that isn't achieved, then it's very hard to achieve any of the other promises of our platform. And that level of core adoption is the provides baseline like ROI and business value just from pure efficiency that is meaningful, but it's also commoditizable. It's a lot that core level of adoption is a lot less defensible in the market. So something that's happened a lot in the course of the last year is that as AI tools are evolving very quickly, we are continuing to stay at the forefront of what people can do with the new AI capabilities in the hiring space. But we can't get a customer to use those capabilities until they use these capabilities first. So that's the order of operations. And so we have to get them through this core adoption threshold. But there are lots of other tools that can be used, not as well, not as robustly, but used to achieve those similar outcomes. So we have to reach this core adoption threshold, but then we have to keep pushing. And I'd say that's one of the biggest differences of this past year is just the speed of evolution and the importance of me and my team really internalizing that this matters. It's very important. And if a customer doesn't reach this threshold, they will almost certainly churn. But getting there is not enough because there are a lot of tools that we are still very replaceable. If we can get a customer to go beyond that into these deeper adoption use cases, and we define those more by use case, then we are a lot more secure and defensible because those are levels of value and functionality that these other competitive tools cannot do. And that those goalposts will probably keep moving for us. Our company has really immortalized in our values the importance of velocity in our entire business. So that evolution related to outcomes is probably one of the biggest things. And it was there a year ago, but it's become much more important and explicit to our business strategy.
I know, and I remember that you told me that customer outcomes should be where the metrics, where what you measure and how do you define success should
Yeah.
always be tied up by the customer turns, not just through internal metrics. So they should be driven by the customer. And somehow it relates to what you said about
Mhm.
adoption and basically changing and making sure that some boxes are tweaked in the user journey. But for the users who are were the listeners of the first time, they do not know the previous conversation. I'm curious how is this connected
Yeah.
with what your team does on a day-to-day business?
Yeah. So that philosophy of mine is still holds true and has always just been that when when it comes time for a customer to tell their value story
Mhm.
internally, it needs to be in their own internal metrics that their business values, their internal stakeholders. Every executive sponsor will have to go to their CFO to justify the investment, and those the that intensity has only increased this past year. And that's always been a philosophy that I've believed in. I'll be honest, very candidly, that's still hard. It is hard to operationalize that. And if I'm being really honest with myself, I don't think we're a whole lot better at that at this point now than we were a year ago, frankly, which I'm a little embarrassed to say, but here we are. But that's hard. But it is still the way to go about it. And it is still, if we when it comes time to publish a case study or something like that's usually when those things come out. And we are now putting in trying to better operationalize an approach of early executive alignment with the executive stakeholder, because the way of our implementation, the executive stakeholder tends to step out pretty quickly because we get into very operational stuff very fast. And that's driven by an implementation manager and their operational counterpoint, and we're trying to operationalize a consistent execution of early executive alignment involving an executive on our side, the exec sponsor from the customer side, and their customer success manager. So while the implementation manager is over here driving on the nuts and bolts and the technical setup, the CSM is driving that strategic alignment and making sure we identify and agree on the vision of what the executive sponsor is going to be accountable for. What is the story they want to be able to tell? Why are they making this investment? And that gives us the roadmap for the deeper adoption use cases. So based on the vision of what they want to accomplish, then we can say, okay, we're going to reach core adoption, and this is the roadmap to do that. And then down these use case, like not verticals, but categories, use case categories. If you want this outcome, you need this use case, which means we need to focus on getting your users to drive into these parts of the platform. Once we reach core adoption, we'll push into this direction. And another outcome, if a customer is focused on trying to improve in our case, their level of effort for hiring, they want to reduce the hours that people spend in hiring, then we're going to push them into this set of tools. If they want to focus on talent density and the quality of hiring decisions, then we're going to push them into this set of tools. And so there's a couple different categories of those use cases that align to different ROI outcomes that a hiring leader, a head of TA at a company would be trying to drive into.
In order to, I would call, not sure if it's the correct term or not, but it gives me the sense of upgraded. So it seems like you buckled up the adoption
Yeah.
framework that you have. It's basically 2.0 or maybe even 3.0. I'm curious, what did it take to end up 1 year afterwards? What did it end out? What did it take in terms of people, tools, processes, everything?
Yeah.
What
The
was the journey?
Yeah, where we're at so far with this is mostly in the realm of process and team alignment around what are we going to ask for? How do we get to this? And then what do we do with it? In terms of where we are lacking and where the next piece of trying to operationalize this is in the tooling, where it
Mhm.
actually starts getting, the vision does not exist yet in reality, but the vision is that for every customer, we'd be able to go into our CRM and identify they want they are focused on these outcomes, and that is aligned to these adoption signals that we need to see from the platform. We have identified that in a analog way right now, but the the ability to report on those adoption signals is not as easy as I want it to be right now. It's there, but you have to go dig, and we that's an area that needs to get tooled up better to make it
Mhm.
easy for my team to get those answers and have it just flow into a nice scorecard. But right now, the framework is there of, okay, what do they care about, and what are we looking for, and then how does that affect the story we're then going to try and tell 9 months from now as we prepare for the renewal. And so that is a motion that is running with new customers, and then
Mhm.
with legacy customers, it's okay, now let's refresh the relationship and try to get realigned on the direction we're going, which you would do with a existing customer anyway, because their priorities evolve over time.
What did it take to end up with this framework?
Team at this point, it's been team workshops in
Okay.
terms of figuring out and defining, okay, what it in terms of the outcomes that we sell, if an AE is selling to a customer that, hey, this is all the stuff that you can get from BrightHire, what does a customer actually have to do to get those results? Because there can be a significant breakdown between that point and this point, especially when there's an implementation in the middle that is highly operational. It's very easy to lose the forest for the trees. So, what actually needs to happen, and then defining those, and those behaviors are the thing that we workshopped. Then the thing that is happening, I'm actually working on like right now, is actually trying to operationalize that customer journey or orchestrate that customer journey. Like right now, the customer journey is on paper, and
Mhm.
the team knows these are the things I'm supposed to be doing, but nothing is helping them along the journey of, okay, now it is time to be doing this. Or, hey, these are the things that matter to them. Now this is what needs to show up in this next touch point. And so that is what I'm working to orchestrate in the systems and tools right now. So that's an open project. And then also, we have an OKR right now. The whole company is aligned on an OKR about driving these deeper adoption kind of use cases. And so now we're running a thing where, like, every single month we're doing a feature focused webinar that my team is driving, not a sales webinar. It's customer only. And it's more of a workshopy activity with customers where we get into the system and help try to give them some very practical, here's how you can use this to get this result. And then not just doing the webinar, but then taking it and turning it into kind of a toolkit that CSMs can use to follow up with their customers. So it's like a multi-channel adoption push. Each month, we're picking a piece to really drive and focus on to help move the needle on adoption in that use case. So, like, we just ran one last week around helping recruiters and talent program managers using a specific piece of our platform to help improve hiring decision quality for hiring managers. And that's one of the visions that we sell. But when it's easy for people, when they get into when they start using the tool, okay, now how do I actually, what part of this helps me do that? And so that was the purpose of the webinar last week. So now we're taking the results from that webinar, we're turning it into some little snippets of, like, little video snippets, some one pager guides, and the CSMs will be using those as follow up over the next month. And then in parallel to that, next month we'll have a new use case. And so every month we're just trying to drive this feature focus adoption that helps our customers move into the deeper surface area or the wider surface area of our platform.
I'm curious, what did you need to support all these change to support the implementation of the framework? What did you need to change into the team? How did the CS team organization
Yeah.
change in order for you to be able to deliver all this? What tweaks did you make?
Yeah. We've been evolving our segmentation model, and
Okay.
then aligning the different versions of our customer journey to the segmentation models. When we spoke a year ago, we were largely first of all, a year ago, I was actually still personally running our
I
scale
know.
segment. And that has actually, my team's grown. So that has now taken on ownership, and we're building scale tools in that motion to allow our team to communicate out to customers at scale a lot more, which is just creating a lot more conversation touch points with customers, allowing us to get a lot more broadcast and things like that in both email and shared Slack channels with customers and things like that. And so there's been a tooling element there, but then in the segmentation, I'm continuing to expand my team now. And part of that is to have team members owning different segments so that they don't have as much mode switching of the life cycle that they're trying to deliver. Yeah. So that's happening mainly around the mid-market and the enterprise segmentation now and then the tools that we develop in the scale motion will start cascading upward to help drive efficiency for all of the teams, but that's where we build them.
What has been the biggest challenge that you had to overcome the last year with everything that you put in place? Because
Yeah.
it's like you've been the new foundation where you upscale the existing foundation, you scale the team. There were a lot of things happening. So building the team, building the internal alignment, coming up with a totally new philosophy. What's been the most challenging part?
Honestly, the biggest challenge this past year has been team bandwidth.
Okay.
We're a company that takes parental leave really seriously, and I had a rotating round of team members on parental leave with new babies. And so I haven't had a fully intact team for 6 months, which means as the leader, like I've been leaning in on those things, and it's been really difficult to get that has really slowed us down. So it's one of those things where I'm so happy for my team members and their families, and I've been really happy to support them through this, but it's hard. And it's something I don't feel like we talk about a lot of. The price of the kind of of these more progressive family support policies, which I also know are taken for granted in Europe and in the US. The fact that our team members get the time they do is actually a really something I'm really proud of for our company, because not all
Mhm.
companies give people the amount of time we do. It's still nothing compared to what people get in Europe, but it's more than many companies in the US do. And that actually got stronger when our company got acquired by Zoom a few months ago. And I'm really happy about that. But how we resource those things is hard. And that has slowed me down a lot. And just being able to just have the bandwidth to make these changes amongst my team. And so finally, I feel like I can start moving a lot faster in the next 6 months than I was able to move in the previous 6 months. So I'm feeling very energized right now about that. But one of the other big things that continues to just be the mud that you have to drag yourself through is data. There is so much, any kind of automation, any kind of intelligence you're trying to build is very dependent on data, and getting the data where I need it to be in order to drive something is tricky. Like I'm working through a project right now with my Scale CSM of how do we automate the renewal process. Well, doing that requires information that has historically been trapped in the PDF order form from a deal, which means in order for them to make their renewal plan, they have to go find that order form and read the order form and then put it. So this is a very simple thing. It's essential for us to automate is, okay, now what is the data fields that if I'm doing the preparation, what am I actually doing, and convert that into a data step of, okay, I'm actually going and looking at the order form to identify the headcount tier, that the pricing tier that the customer was on. That the deal record in our CRM doesn't have that data. It has the price they paid, but it doesn't have this piece of data. Now we're creating that field on the deal so that when the AE closes a deal, that's a thing they select. It's just super simple things, but without that, I can't automate the process. So now we're doing a big backfill where we get all the PDFs from last year, and we're going to run those through AI and pull out that data point and now get those data points uploaded. And once we have this process in place, then the next round of deals that come in will automatically have that. But getting ourselves caught up in this data integrity so that we have the inputs to automate with is a project, and we're working through it. And I think we'll be wrapped up on this one in the next couple of weeks. And then that will allow us to have this piece of workflow then automated. But that's the nitty gritty work of building to that kind of automation. But then once that's there, we can do some pretty cool stuff now with the tools that are available to us. We just have to get that data out of 1,000 PDFs from last year. I know it's silly, but this is the work.
And you are totally right. In theory, everything looks simple. It's actually those tiny little things that we have to do until we end up automating everything. What else besides the renewal process is on your list to automate?
Sequencing customer onboarding so that as a customer is right now for an implementation, we meet with the customer and they have some things that they need to go do. And then we have to go check, have they done it? We're emailing back and forth until we're ready to then move to the next checkpoint. And what I'm wanting to do next is creating the kind of automated feedback loops in the system so that, hey, as the customer does this thing, it automatically makes this update so that now I'm in this next step, which means in a high touch implementation, it's more of I just have the information I need. I can run an AI model that tells me, okay, customer's done this, on your next call, this is what you need to do, like quick prep. But at the lower end of my implementations, that allows me to then set up automations where it's, okay, they hit this milestone, now trigger this communication from for that SMB implementation playbook. So it keeps moving, but I actually didn't need to do anything, or all I need to do was just approve the action, either fully autonomous or semi-autonomous. And right now that's an easy thing either to miss when someone's running an SMB implementation and it falls through the cracks. Hey, this customer's actually taken 3 weeks on this step. What is going on? That's a moment to lean in. Or, hey, just keep it clipping along so it's not actually waiting on me to take the action. But right now that doesn't exist it gets done, but it's not being logged in a place that the system can run on it. Some of these things will be deterministic automations in the CRM, very much classic automation. Some of them are more AI playbooks using a different tool that we're using that will, okay, based on these things, here's your suggested next step. Here's a draft of what is probably appropriate here, getting you not just telling you something needs to be done, but helping halfway getting you there to doing it in a more evaluative way.
You mentioned that BrightHire was acquired.
Yes.
Was there any downside from an operational point of view? Did it slow down in any way? How is it for the CS to basically be acquired?
Yeah, so this is probably not the normal experience that folks are going to have when they get acquired. But yeah, so BrightHire got acquired by Zoom in December, which was fantastic. We've had a incredible momentum in the market, and our platform is all about hiring, and Zoom is the biggest hiring platform in the world. It gets used for more hiring conversations than anything else. It was a very exciting opportunity for the business. What's been unique is we're continuing to operate as an independent business unit within Zoom. What that means is we are part of the Zoom business now, but we have the luxury of still very much like running our game. None of our teams are being absorbed into the larger company. I have a new Zoom laptop. I have a new Zoom SSO. I submit expenses a different way. But one of the really important things that our CEO insisted on in the transaction is that we maintain our ability to continue running with the velocity in the market that we've been doing, because Zoom is a very different scale of business. They are enormous and they move at a different pace. And our pace in the market was part of what appealed to them about us, and they don't want to mess that up. So they're allowing us to continue running our race. And so very little is changing, but now we have a lot more resources to draw upon to get those things done. But I feel really lucky in this regard. Like, my team's not getting absorbed into the Zoom customer success team. I'm sure that there will be greater collaborations and influence and potential absorption down the road someday, but not anytime soon. And that's a blessing. We're still running like crazy. And yes, last year was a phenomenal year for BrightHire. And I think this next year is going to be just as phenomenal. But there is an evolution of accountability within our business. I've always cared about GRR and NRR in our business, gross revenue retention and net revenue retention. Historically, we cared a lot more about net revenue retention. And one of the just operational changes is that there's a lot more care about GRR now than there was a year ago, because it's part of a reporting motion that matters in the Zoom kind of quarterly process. That's a slight change, but it does change the conversation. And it's a healthy move for my team. And it is driving in my forecasting motion now, I am talking about GRR a lot more. And it's also an element where we are, as over the last few years, GRR has been improving to a point of going from decent to now trying to push it to a level of really good. And that brings it into a level of focus as well that just requires attention and effort. GRR is a metric that we are paying more attention to than before. Not that we weren't paying attention to it before, but it matters more now. It is an active part of executive conversations that it just wasn't as central in previous years.
Porter, it was great to reconnect and hear how the last year unfolded since our previous chat. I really appreciate you coming back on the podcast.
Definitely.
And maybe we'll do another check-in in a year from now and how the story continues. I'm curious because for sure it will be an interesting journey for you and also the whole BrightHire team. So I'm going to monitor it closely. Thanks for
Wonderful.
coming in. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and mastering customer success.